What's up, guys? Kevin from the KO Sports Corner. As you can see at the top, it is very, very late. It is like 11:39, but we're gonna talk some Marlins. A lot to talk about, John. Um, we're doing this daily once again. We took, I think, a week or two off. You're busy. I'm busy. As you can see, FIU coverage there and Inter Miami also back there, and you're working. Um, how are you, man? It's been a while. We haven't spoken in a very, very long time, but I'm excited to do this again, and hopefully we could get this back on the weekly basis.
Feels good to be back. Last time I did this, the Marlins season was still in session, I believe.
Yeah.
So we're now kicking it off season. It's time for the grind. We're gonna be following this team, see what they do, see if they actually turn the ship around. And yeah, let's do this.
All right. So we're gonna do manager update. So talk about who's been interviewed, who may get interviewed, and who we want to see get interviewed next. And then we'll do some season awards, which we have not done yet. So let's start with who's been interviewed. Pedro Grifo has been interviewed. He is a Kansas City Royals bench coach. And then Joe Espada has been interviewed, who is the Houston Astros bench coach, who was just a part of one of the longest playoff games of all time. 17 innings of play. I'm sorry, 18 innings of play. And Houston won 1-0. So let's talk about Pedro Grifo a little bit. He's a Miami native. He went to Christopher Columbus High School. He was part of the 2015 World Series team, and he's been there since 2013. He shouldn't be left out of the running. That is another note I put because although Espada may be the top candidate just due to the fact he was a former Marlins coach, has the Yankee ties. He's bilingual, currently with the Astros, a winning organization, and as you and I both consider him the top candidate, and as many other people do as well, um, Pedro Grifo shouldn't be left out. This is a very good candidate, well experienced. He knows how to win. He's been there. They could have let him go many times, but they've kept him, and he may be next in line to take that job in Kansas City. So, what are your thoughts on Grifo and the opportunity that has arose for him, and maybe the opportunity that he may be the next manager for the Miami Marlins?
Yeah, Grifol is a good guy. Maybe an underlooked name
Mm-hmm.
for what fans are expecting. Espada's name really came up and it's gone pretty viral among the fan base. But you got to give credit to Grifol. You said it. He's been a part of that 2015 World Series title with the Royals, and he's been in that club for a while. He's gone through it all. He's seen it all. Um, yeah, Miami native, as you said as well, so it's maybe a plus. He's also bilingual,
He should be.
so it's a good option. I think he's my number two so far, maybe even number three, because I have another guy in mind that I think they haven't interviewed just yet. And but yeah, Greifel, great guy. If they elect him and he becomes the next manager, that's going to be a great fit for this young club.
Yeah, and before we talk about Joe Spot, actually, no, let's go to Joe Spot and then we'll get into some other news that was dropped this week. You may know what I'm talking about here, but Joe Spada, this is the top candidate. I mean, this is the perfect guy for the Marlins, in my opinion. I know a lot of others in the Fish Stripe staff, you guys know I'm with, and that's my main outlet, have their thoughts, but a lot like Joe Spada, and they think that's the guy. Former Marlins coach, Yankee ties with the Astros bilingual, and he is the top candidate. And I think in many people's eyes, he is the top guy, the one that will most likely get this job after the whole process. He's been a part of coaching circles for a very, very long time. So this is definitely a name there, John. I know this is maybe your top guy to as well on the market, and then we'll go into the other news.
Yeah, Joe Spada. I've mentioned him many times on my Twitter how much I want the guy. He's got Marlins ties. He's seen the Marlins win 80 games, believe it or not, once
Yeah,
upon a time.
2010, right?
So, yeah, no, 2010. Well, yeah, 2010 they won 80 games, but they finished under 500 by 2 games. Um, he's been here, I believe, also in '09. He was here in 2012 and 2013. Then he went over to the Yankees organization. So, he's seen a lot of winning his whole entire coaching career. He's seen a lot of winning. He's been a part of winning organizations. He's now with the Astros, might even end up 2022 with a nice ring on his ring finger. So,
Mhm.
um, Espada deserves it. He's qualified. He's young, he's capable, he's experienced. He's been around all the coaching kind of branches as you mentioned. Bilingual, he's gonna help kind of bring this clubhouse together. We've seen a lot of turmoil from the clubhouse this past season, and maybe you could even agree to that you've been in that locker room yourself. And yeah, bring it back, honestly, Marlins. Like this is the guy. This is the guy. If you're able to get to reach on a nice deal with this guy and make him your new coach, do it. Yeah, I think this is the best way to go.
Yeah. So before we go into the other news that will drop today, this weekend or this week, it was reported, I believe this is from Andy Slater, that or Barry Jackson. Not actually. Once I tell you, I want you to search sub John, but it was reported that Kim Ang has informed the staff, the coaching staff, that right now their jobs are definitely secured, but until the new manager comes, that is when they will do the firing. So they will allow the new manager to choose his staff.
Mm.
They do not have to keep the staff at the moment how it is. Obviously, the only exception to this would be Mel Stonemeyer Jr., who they will attempt to keep back. And as we've seen from Craig Mish, he expects Mel to be back, which means he would be getting top 10, top 5 money for a pitching coach. So he's gonna get the bag. If you have the tweet in front of you, who reported that? I believe it was Andy Slater or Barry Jackson, but
I know
you
for
may
a
have.
fact it was one of the two. You're right on that. I can't find it, but yeah. With that, I wanted to mention.
I'll look it up. You talk.
Yeah, I wanted to mention Mel Stottlemyre, man. Many people are right now in the boat of who's going to be the next manager. I'm also on the boat of who's going to be the pitching coach next year. This is an expiring contract for Mel. I hope and expect the Marlins to give this guy a bag. He deserves it, number one. From the day that the team hired Mel Stottlemyre, he's turned this pitching core and development around. He's turned us
It's Andy
into
Slater, but it's Andy Slater.
Slater.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So with Mel, man, like this is the guy who developed a bunch of pitchers. Sandy, remember, in the Cardinals, he was projected to be at the very best. His ceiling was to be a long reliever. And I forgot who exactly said that, but I read that somewhere. And as soon as he entered Miami on that Ozuna trade, he turned it around. He turned him around. Look at him now. He's about to win the Cy Young Award. I'm so happy for that guy. Pablo Lopez, another guy who was pretty much like just a guy that they slapped into a trade. Remember, it was that David Phelps trade
Yeah.
once upon a while back. And other guys, Braxton Garrett, look at him. Jesus
Luzardo.
Luzardo's looking amazing. You got to give credit to
Trev
Mel.
is another work in there, but just
Chev.
2021, 2022, mad, but we'll get there.
Right, right. And when you look at this team at the end of the day, one highlighting factor is their pitching. And I do think you got to give credit to Mel if you can, and I'd give that man his bag easily. He can't afford to lose him.
All right, so let's get into the next piece of news that was reported by Mark Feinstad. That's how you say, yeah, Feinsand.
Hmm.
So, new candidate possibly for the Marlins as well as all these other teams. I will read it word for word. There's buzz within the industry that Phillies hitting coach Kevin Long is emerging as a potential managerial candidate for at least one of the 5 openings: Royals, White Sox, Marlins, Blue Jays, and Rangers. There was actually a report earlier this week that Bruce Bochy was meeting with the Rangers, so we'll see what happens there. He may be going back into coaching in this time for a new team that is not the San Francisco Giants, but Kevin Long is a former Yankee, Met, National, and now Philly. The players very much like him, and he's big. He's been a big part of the Rob Thompson portion of this season. So, what are your thoughts on that possibility to just seeing how the Phillies are playing now and how they played, not offensively, obviously, when Bryce Harper was out, they kept themselves in the race. And at the end, when Bryce Harper came back, look what they've been doing. And now they're in the NLCS, what, 3 or 4 games away from a World Series appearance once again for the first time since 2011, I want to say.
Yeah, that's a nice name. Kevin Long, guy with a lot of experience, only 55 years old. In his resume, he's been with the Yankees from '07 to 2014. He won that 2009 chip with the team. He went to the Mets 2015 to 2017, then joining the Washington Nationals from 2018 to 2021. Another one won another title in 2019 with the Nats, and currently with the Phillies, who are
All of
wow,
this is a hitting coach, correct?
right, right.
I'll look at
And He's shocked the world. He's completely shocked. The Phillies have shocked the world so far, eliminating the Braves. And something is to note. He's done a magnificent job with those Phillies hitters. And look at them. They're scoring runs, they're winning games, and they're moving on to the NLCS. I consider this to be a nice move. However, if he's also a candidate that you could add on for your hitting coach position, because, given what the Marlins had this year, he's probably a guy you want to add into that role if you could. But hey, if he gets promoted to manager, he's got the years of experience to do it, and I'd be more than happy to welcome him in.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The only issue is I don't know if he would go leave, Washington to then become hitting um a hitting coach because you would have to pay
Right,
him extensively more than what he's
right.
currently earning at the moment. But I would love it. The only issue, maybe the bilingual thing. I mean, I don't know if he's bilingual or not.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure he's not. I'm almost certain.
Right.
Just not, seeing the name. I don't think he's bilingual.
Yeah.
No offense to him, but that would be the only issue. But hey, the good thing is that he's been known as a player's coach. So that's definitely something that is up there. And look at the Phillies. You mentioned the Nationals. That team, really no one expected them to go anywhere in 2019 after I want to say an 11-30 record somewhere around there. And then look what they did in the second half of that season. You can maybe credit him a little bit for the development of Juan Soto. So
Yeah.
there you go. So yeah, I want to move on to the final managerial news, which was a report from Mike Rodriguez. This one is a very interesting one. I would not take this report seriously, but we're gonna throw it out there because he kind of did get the Jorge Soler one correct. Joe Madden is expected to interview with the Marlins and the Chicago White Sox. Once again, don't take this completely seriously. We're not sure. We have not seen anyone else report this, but let's say this is true, John. This is a guy who is in that old kind of style of baseball. We know him from his days with the Tampa Bay Rays, then the Chicago Cubs. He went all the way to the World Series with the Rays. He went all the way to the World Series with the Cubs and won. And he did not have a very successful tenure in
Anaheim.
Anaheim just due to the fact of that team just not being built the right way. But you can't blame it all on him. He's mentioned many times, and I actually was listening to this the other day, that the chances of him coming back would be that the person that he's with agrees with the philosophy that he has. So Kim was with Don Mattingly for what, 2 years, and Donnie's. Would you say that Donnie's philosophy is a little bit similar to what Joe Maddon's is? These guys are both pretty old guys. They've been through a long, long time in the league. Donnie was a player himself. So, do you think this is a good managerial candidate? And if it isn't, why? And if it is, why?
It's one to consider, and maybe he's not bilingual, but one thing that I give a lot of credit to Madden is his ability to try to amp up the morale in his clubhouse. Remember, he's done crazy stuff in those clubhouses to get the team kind of going in spirit. And I was told, or I read somewhere, that before Madden got fired, he was actually planning on coming in with dyed hair or something into the clubhouse and try to get the Angels players all excited and going. So, for a young team like the Marlins, that's probably something you'd kind of look into, but I don't consider it to be a finalist. But yes, I'd give him the interview. This is a guy who's qualified, has won World Series titles. Well, title has been to the World Series as well with the Rays and obviously the Cubs. Yeah, I'd consider it, but I don't know about finalists.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I just don't see him as a can. I mean, yeah, sure, give him the interview, just see what he's all about, see where he's
Right,
at right now, but he's really not someone I would consider at all. I mean, we've said this many times. The ideal candidate would be a little bit more analytically driven, and obviously the age is just a little bit lower than what
right.
Donnie was. So then this is the next good question. Next candidate you would like to see being interviewed. I have two. I know you had one in mind.
Yes.
We may have the same one.
I think we're gonna end up having the same one with this one, but I'm gonna name this one and say Matt Quatraro,
Okay.
from the Tampa Bay Rays. He's the current bench coach. As you mentioned, Kevin, he's an analytical guy. He's relatively young. He's with a nice Rays team who unfortunately got walked off and their season ended up short, but that's besides the point. Um yeah, he's a great guy, great guy. He deserves a promotion of some capacity. He's like we mentioned with the Rays, they have won a lot of games despite being a lower market team. So it kind of fills the sample and maybe what the Marlins are trying to build, kind of that Rays and Guardians mold. Look at the Guardians right now.
It went away.
So he's my number two. That's the number two guy that I was talking about earlier, where I would have Espada one, Cutraro two, and Grifo three.
Okay, so my first one is currently the Team USA manager, Mark DeRosa.
Mm,
He almost got the job in 2015, if you remember. They were going to go with Donnie, and then they ended up, when they interviewed DeRosa, they were very impressed to the point where they were considering DeRosa over Donnie, but they ended up going Donnie. So maybe he goes back in for another interview. I would definitely like to see that possibility there. Then the next one, a name that I know our good buddy Isaac Azud has mentioned a couple times, to me at least, not to you, but Sandy Alomar Jr. He is currently with the Cleveland Guardians. I believe he's their hitting coach, and I'm going to confirm that right now. But Cleveland Guardians, the team that walked off Matt Quatraro and the Rays, and he's been in the World Series, former player. He knows the mold of the Cleveland Guardians and in the past the Indians, a team that doesn't have much payroll, but still somehow wins. Just look at them right now with Jose Ramirez, who's making probably the most money in the Cleveland Guardians. Ooh, I said Indians there. And then you have Shane Bieber making what, 6 million a year, Mackenzie making 600K a year, for example. That is something you really have to consider because that is definitely a coach that I would like on the Marlins, just due to the fact of that knowing what he does, and he is currently manager plate. Doesn't say where he's a coach of, but I believe he's a hitting coach. But I think he also managed Puerto Rico at one point, so he knows his stuff, and he's definitely someone who would make a lot of sense. And then obviously there's Francisco Cervelli, and you mentioned Quatraro. I really hope they at least give the interview to Cervelli. He definitely deserves it. So let's move on to what we're here for. Season superlatives. We're not going to call it season awards because I don't think most disappointing is an award you want to have. But we're going to start. I'm going to read out the awards. There's Offensive Player of the Year, Pitcher of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Reliever of the Year, Moment of the Year, Most Disappointing Player of the Year, Breakout Player of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, Minor League Player of the Year. So, John, the floor is yours. Who is your Offensive Player of the Year?
Man, and before I say who my offensive player of the year is, it's truly sad, right? A team who played 162 games and the guy I'm about to name only played not even a fraction of it, and that's Jazz Chisholm Jr. He is my offensive player of the year. With the 60 games he's played, he played a 2020 season and a 162 game season and still put up the best offensive numbers on the team. Like, that's his presence, and the presence that Jazz brings to the team is incredibly impactful. This is a guy, he's a spark plug of this team. I've mentioned that many, many times before. I hope he continues to kill it next year. Hopefully this time a little bit more sustained and maybe more healthy. Uh, Fun guy to watch. I mean, I think we could both agree on that. He's also a good post game analyst. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah,
He's been really
I
good.
saw it. Yeah.
He's been really fun to listen to. You typically watch a lot of guys who do post game and they're all retired, but this is a guy who's still active in the league and he's doing a hell of a job. But getting a bit out of topic here, but no man, Jazz, he's a great guy. Hopefully he completely breaks out next year and plays much more games, shows that he's capable of handling more games without getting injured. But injury is just a natural part of the game, and sometimes it's out of your control. But yeah, it's got to be Jazz, and it's truly sad that this team had 162 games to play, and there wasn't another guy you could probably, I guess, consider. It was just it was too inconsistent.
Yeah, and that is also my pick. And just to read out the stats, 254 batting average, 325 OBP, 535 slugging, 860 OPS, 14 home runs, 45 RBIs. Just what a season for Jazz. He was an all-star starter on top of that. Just deserving of the award, man. I mean, there's nothing really else you should say there.
Right.
There's really no one that came close to Jazz, in my opinion. Charles LeBlanc maybe was the closest, and that says a lot. So we'll move on. Is there really much to say about pitcher of the year? It's Sandy Alcantara for me, and it definitely is for you. Unless you know AJ Ladwig, no? Any consideration ever? No? Okay. 14 and 9, 2.28 ERA, 228.2 innings pitched, 207 strikeouts, became the first Marlins pitcher ever to have 200 strikeout seasons, 2.99 FIP, 0.980 WHIP, and he will win the Cy Young.
One word, Psycontra.
There it is. And 6 complete games. One of them came in a loss.
Yeah.
Almost got to Dontrell's record. Unfortunately, did not. He was taken out of that Washington game. So, do you have anything to even mention? I mean, there's really not much, but I'll let you have your brief moment.
He's a workhorse, man. We've been saying this since day one, opening day. This guy is just incredible to watch. As a matter of fact, Kevin, we saw Sandy's second start in the 2022 season, and I believe you got to see his last start, if I'm not mistaken.
I saw his final home start, yeah.
Final home start. And I was there for one of the more impressive yet most incredible games that Sandy's pitched this year, which was the game against the Dodgers, the #1 team in the planet for the MLB. And he completely just mowed down those hitters. And remember, he was shelled at Dodger Stadium, so he got his well-earned revenge. And you saw that sign right behind you. That's what it is. He's the Cy Young Award, 100%.
Yeah, and this is where I want to ask you. What was the moment of the season where you were like, all right, this guy's winning the Cy Young?
Well, it came at a time where I want to say All-Star game. I'm like, I think he's got it, but once the early second half, I started to kind of question, oh man, he's coming a little bit out of control. Like, I'm not liking this. And Urias from the Dodgers was kind of coming closer. Gallen was putting up a very, very impressive fight. I think he just beat one of Randy Johnson's many records. But the game that I think Sandy just locked it right down is that complete game against the Dodgers. Man, like, how many people could say that they pitched all 9 innings without, only allowing 1 run
It was a home
to
run
the #1 team?
Mm-hmm.
And that was in the first inning. And another thing about that game that makes it so much better. Remember, he had the bases loaded, bottom of the 9th, and Don Mattingly, credits to him, believed in his guy, and he got that last out. Like that's the man. He's the Cy Young.
Yeah, and for me, it'll be that start against St. Louis, if you remember the complete game where he points back at Donnie, and maybe that's my moment of the year. You never know. I don't know if that was the one you were gonna pick, but Sandy's a guy, and I think from here on out we may have disagreements. So, rookie of the year, I'm gonna start first. Mine is Braxton Garrett, and I think yours is gonna be Nick Fortes or Edward Cabrera. But you stay with your poker face because I don't want you to spoil it there. But 3-7 record, 3.58 ERA, 88 innings pitched, 90 strikeouts, 3.56 FIP, 1.250 WHIP. He did pitch a lot more than Edward Cabrera, which is why I ended up going with Braxton. Man, this guy, he really, really improved. And it sucks that the organization thinks, the way they do about him to the point where they sent him down when Trevor Rogers came back. But his slider's a lot better. The curveball's a lot better. He just looks like a completely different guy. And he was able to hold down a rotation spot for a full season. He got a shot, John. That's where it came down to. And it came down to just more innings pitched. That is why I chose him over Edward. And unfortunately, the thing with Edward was just the injuries, because I know a lot of people are going to say, I made a mistake choosing Braxton over Edward, but no, I think Braxton is the right choice here. And that is a rookie of the year. And surprisingly, he is still a rookie. And although he had a 3-7 record, he made some very nice starts. That final start against the Rangers is really one of the more impressive ones. And he also had a nice one against the Braves in that final series of the year.
Yeah. my rookie of the year, same one, Braxton Garrett. He's my
Oh,
rookie of the
okay.
year. But
Did
you
you
know,
actually have Braxton Garrett or did you
yeah,
have someone else? Okay.
Braxton Garrett. But I wanted to give a shout out to this other guy, Nick Fortes, man. He's my runner up. Um, for a guy who is currently the backup catcher for the Marlins. Maybe they try to kind of position him to be the main catcher next year. That would be interesting to see.
Hmm.
Maybe Stallings becomes Sandy's Yu Darvish and Caratini. Remember back when they were on the Cubs?
Yeah.
So that catching battery. And man, Fortes, fun to watch. 230 batting average, 304 OBP, 392 slugging, 696 OPS. Not crazy numbers, but he does his job the right way. He's fun. He's from Florida. Uh Great guy. I wish the best for him, and man, it's hard to beat out Braxton Garrett, who completely shocked me. I wasn't high on Braxton Garrett at all, and he shut me up, and rightfully so. He is my rookie of the year.
I don't think anyone was too high on Braxton Garrett except their buddy Alex Carver. So that's what I'll say. I really wasn't high. When I saw him come back up, I was like, all right, nice. And he does that, and then he keeps going
Yeah.
and going and going. It's like we got something in Braxton, and maybe he turns out to be a big trade piece. So we'll
Yep.
see because with two lefties, you have to choose one or the other. So let's go with reliever of the year. I do not know who you're gonna go with. You're a big Anthony Bender fan, but there's no way you chose Anthony Bender as your reliever of the year after his very disappointing start in 2022. Um, but so I want to know who you chose because I'm actually very, very interested to see who you chose here. And if
I
we
love.
end up having the same guy, I am gonna be absolutely shocked.
Okay. I love Bender. He's a great guy. I love that man. Hopefully he comes back and completely, goes off just like he did in 2021. He was really starting to get it together. I don't know if you've noticed with Bender, like he was really
Towards the end, yeah, I
getting
was
it
there the day.
together.
I was there the day he got the Tommy John.
But my reliever of the year is going to the man who deleted his Twitter, Anthony Bass, man. He is the guy. He finished with a
You're gonna
let me see, 1.54 ERA, a whip of 1.09, but he also played with Toronto. So with the Marlins, he went 2-3 with a 141 ERA, a 940 whip, a FIP of 206, and an ERA plus of 290. This guy was incredible, man. Like watching that guy go out there and completely shut up all the haters. And I was really hyping the guy up since opening day. I'm like, hey, who's talking trash now? Like, who's gonna talk trash about Bass now?
Mhm.
I've always believed in the dude. He was a great guy, and I've always had a sort of friendship with Bass on Instagram back when I was really active on my Instagram account, all Marlins. It was fun to always message him. He was a great guy. He was really humble. He he admitted his failures, and when he would come out and kind of blow the games, he'll be like, "Hey, I take full accountability of that, and I'm gonna try to do next year a little better." We always talked about his pitch mix and pretty much everything that he kind of had in his arsenal. I always questioned his splitter. It was one of his nicer pitches, and he didn't really use it much last year. So, but man, this year, Bass, absolute monster. And sadly, it didn't end the right way in Toronto, but that's besides the point. He is my reliever of the year.
Oh boy. Okay, I didn't choose Bass just because
Okay,
I wanted to choose a current guy.
okay.
You're gonna laugh at me. I chose Huascar Brazoban as my
Oh,
reliever of the year. He was actually very solid, I'll tell you that. 1-1, 27 games, 11.25 K per nine. His walk per nines were a little bit high, but he could be the next Kyle Barraclough. Our good buddy Eli Sussman made a whole article on why this guy could be the next Kyle Barraclough. 3.09 ERA, 3.99 FIP. He throws gas, bro. He throws gas. If you remember that game against the Braves, that one where they won, you saw the way he got out of that game. I mean, wow, it was impressive. So on Huascar Brazoban, and this. All right, so the next award that I brought up was Moment of the Year. This is obviously there's a lot of moments throughout the year, although it was a really bad season. overall, and it was a lot of ups and downs. You could remember a lot of that first half, plus just a couple games after the All-Star break, and then a couple after that were pretty memorable. I'm gonna go and start with this one, and obviously, it's the Sandy Alcantara complete game against the St. Louis Cardinals for me. Dude, just the point. That was that was cool. It was
Mm.
cool down and leaving him in there. And just before that, which was another good moment in that game, Avisail Garcia hits that home run to dead center field to put them on top. I don't think there's a better game than that one. I will forever remember. I think this we were doing this pod with it was Jeremiah, Sean, myself,
Oh, that's right.
and
Yeah.
Avi hit the home run, and we all lost it.
We were
That
all
was one
losing
of the
it.
best, like one of the greatest moments of the season. But I'm not gonna steal anymore, and I'm gonna let you choose yours.
That was one of my candidates for game of the year, and you said it. Like something I love about players is when they show personality. And another thing that adds to Sandy's Cy Young trot is his personality, man. He's a leader. I think, truthfully, and I don't know if this is going to cause any stir, but he is my Marlins captain. This is my leader. 100% Sandy Alcantara leads his team any day of the week. He is the leader. And when he's pointing at his manager, hey, you better keep me in this game. I got this under control. And Avisail Garcia comes in and, gets the job done, the most important part, which is hitting. But I have a couple other games I wanted to mention,
Okay.
and I also wanted to include Nick Fortes' walk-off against the
Well,
New York
yeah,
Mets. That was
yeah.
on national television, Peacock, and that was
The
that was
legend
really,
Peacock.
really impressive. Another one that I have as well is Sandy's complete game versus the Dodgers.
Hmm.
I still think that is really, 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 really impressive. But my game of the year, I agree with you, Kevin. It's that Cardinals complete game. Complete game. You come back. Avisail Garcia, Sandy Alcantara. Like that's one hell of a game. Like it's emotional. It actually gave me a reason to be excited, right? Like the Marlins actually scored runs for their ace and they won the game. Like what else can you ask for? And they did it in such a dramatic fashion. It was the top of the ninth with um
Two outs.
with two outs. Like,
It was
come on,
first
man.
pitch. First
He
pitch.
he absolutely David Freeze that. And ironically, he did it in Busch Stadium. So that just makes it all but makes it better. Makes it better. That's
Yeah.
the game of the year.
There's two other moments I want to mention. Obviously, one of them which came out on the last road trip, which was Avisail Garcia's grand slam.
Oh yeah.
I think the top of the eighth. They were down. You just thought it was over, and Avi Garcia
Oh,
just slammed that grand slam there, and he gave the Marlins the lead and eventually the win. And then finally, I don't know who this was against. This may have been against the Nationals, man. You look at the record against the Nationals, but these were some of the craziest games of the
oh,
year.
Jesus Sanchez
The
as well.
the Jesus Sanchez sack fly, and I think this was it wasn't the exact same game, but the Williams Astudillo slide, the dive was that against the Nats?
That was I don't remember. I think it
It
was
was
against
against the
the
Nats.
Reds or something.
No, it had to be against the Nats because he wasn't on the team when the Reds came over here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
It
think it
was
was
the
the Nats
Nats. It
then.
was the Nats. I'm almost certain, but that was a nice
I thought of
moment.
a couple others.
Okay,
There
go
was
for it.
another one. Billy Hamilton when he slid and his with his
Oh
eye.
yeah,
I
that was
remember that. That
crazy.
was that's a
I
guy
think that
who.
was against the Reds.
Yes, that's what it was. He gave his all on that play. That's a true hustle play. And another one was this is way back in April. Jazz Chisholm takes a pitch and he like takes a while and the umpire is like, "Come on, get back into the box." Next pitch, he hits it out of there. And
That was against
the
the Rockies.
Cardinals,
Oh, Cardinals? That was the Cardinals. You're right,
I
and they
was
lost that
there.
game.
I was there in that game. It was really fun to watch. That it just goes to show Jazz Chisholm Jr., man. If this guy could bring us a healthy season, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, and then the other moment I was gonna think of was the Gerard Grand Slam as
Oh
his first
yeah.
major league homer. That was a cool moment. So that is I think it was a nice reminiscing time there. Pablo Lopez's game against the Brewers, the first game where the roof was open. That was another cool moment. So that was a real baseball game. Burns versus Pablo, the
That was
pitcher of the
good.
month against Corbin Burns, the reigning NL Cy Young champ. So another cool moment there. But I want to move on to most disappointing player. And although we hyped him up a lot just now with his nice moments, for me it's Avi Garcia. It may be the same for you, but I'll have an honorable mention, or dishonorable mention, I think we could call it. But Avi Garcia first. 224 batting average, 266 OBP, 317 slugging, 880, 582 OPS, 8 homers, 35 RBIs. When Miami signed Avi Garcia, yes, it was a good signing. The value was a little bit too high for him, and the years were a little bit too much. But you look at Avi Garcia's trend, and it's always very inconsistent, a lot of up and down. So, and I wanted to add this question to you here with Avi Garcia, because I think he will have the biggest bounce back in 2023, as he had an amazing 2021 with Milwaukee. You saw it almost 30 home runs, I think at 29. And then you go into 2022, obviously the down year. Donnie described that as kind of the Francisco Lindor effect he had in New York, where he kind of had a pretty meh year with the Mets and with the first year. Now look at him where he is now, or where he was until he got taken out of the wild card game against the Padres. And now you have 2023, which I think will be a big bounce back year for Avi Garcia. But I guess the dishonorable mentions would be Trevor Rogers, who, after having an all-star season in 2021, really couldn't get it going in 2022. A lot of people mentioned tipping in pitches during spring training. And then obviously after the all-star break, I think he was a little bit better. He was very inconsistent. And then finally, Jorge Soler, who unfortunately was dealing with injuries from start to finish. I know you're not the biggest Soler fan, but he kind of did what we expected him to do. Just unfortunately, was it injured to the point where he really couldn't walk. Back injuries, first time he's ever dealt with that in his career. Soler would have been amazing. Low batting average. He led the team in walks for a while, and obviously led the team in walks, but also led it in strikeouts. He was leading in homers for a while until he got injured. So I do think he'll have a nice bounce back as well in 2023. Him as the primary DH. So that leaves the Marlins to look for a new left fielder and center fielder, which I think we'll do a whole free agency video at some point. But who is your most disappointing player of the season, John? I may have just taken every possible option from your choosing, but I think you may agree with those exact three players.
Um, let's start with Avi. I think for
Well,
the
who was
most
your pick
part,
to start? Who was your pick? Was it Avi?
it was Avi, but
Okay.
there's another guy I wanted to bring up that you didn't mention. But with Avi, I think for the biggest part that makes him the most um disappointing is the money that the Marlins gave to the guy. Remember, the
Mhm.
Marlins are not notorious for shedding money on players, and when they actually did, it wasn't effective. So it just added to the pile for Avi. And Avi, as he's mentioned, very bad year. But something that you mentioned and I've noticed is his inconsistent career. He's got on off, on off, on off, on off.
It's literally on off. Like if you go to Baseball Reference for the ones who are watching, it's on and off. Like
It
it's
really is.
hilarious.
And the thing with the thing with Avi is that it's and it makes it cooler is that his odd years are his best years, his even years are his worst years. Like conveniently so. It's literally labeled like that. But I think next year he's going to have he's not going to have a crazy comeback. He's going to have like an okay season. He's going to hit probably like 15 homers next year. He's going to hit okay. Um Remember, he's not playing in Milwaukee anymore. Milwaukee was a very very uh hitter friendly ballpark. So,
There it is.
that's something that
For you guys.
you got to note. And there it is. There it is. On off, on off, on off, on off. It's pretty consistent in terms of like odd seasons and how he's been able to perform really well in
Yeah,
odd
just look at his
seasons.
2021 season. 29 homers. And then obviously 2020, he played almost every game, 2 homers. So I guess if you want to count that, and then you go back to Tampa, 20 homers. This may have been the most consistent streak of his career here from
Right.
2015 to 2019. But yeah, I mean, just look at the batting average. It was a season where he was one of the best. He was an all-star in 2017. He was very, very good in 2017. I mean, just look at the numbers. And hopefully that is what
All-star.
he could do, just adding another year there in 2023.
And I think another thing for Avi is maybe his way of being in the clubhouse. And I think you could back me up on this one, Kevin. he seemed a little bit like out of spirit, I guess is the
It
best way to
wasn't. It
put it.
was. I'll tell you that it wasn't the worst thing. You people, I
Right,
think, are a little bit too harsh on him. He wasn't the worst, but he was obviously, I'm not gonna go much into it because I can't. But
right.
he was at the point where it was very specific spots. What I'm not gonna go into it. But he wasn't bad in the clubhouse. I'll say that there are moments where he was good. He had his moments. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything on the rest of the guys that we mentioned.
Yeah, so my other name that I wanted to bring up that you didn't bring up was Jesus Sanchez. This is a guy that I was really, really high on. In fact, I thought he was going to have a way better season than Jazz Chisholm, and he ended up not having a better season than Jazz Chisholm Jr. But yeah, you said it like, no, there's obvious Grand Slam
I'm
once in
trying this
a
feature out to see how good it is. So
blue moon.
yeah,
But yeah, with Sanchez, man, he disappointed me. He had a 214 batting average, 280 OBP, 403 slugging, 682 OPS, 91 OPS plus. Uh, I feel like another failure, and it's not really on Jeezy, but it's more on the front office. Is they just slapped him in center field and they said, "Hey, you're gonna play center field because you're gonna play center field," and he did okay. He did okay in center field, but I think his ideal position was going to be left field. I think left field is more comfortable for a guy like Jeezy, and yeah, he really disappointed me. He also went to Triple A. He did okay, but yeah, that's a big name for me, and I was really high on Jeezy. I think I'm still there. I haven't given up on him, but yeah, you thought yeah I'd mentioned Soler, but Soler did exactly what I expected him to do, so I'm not really gonna count him as a disappointing player. But yeah, with Jeezy, man, that and there you go, Kevin. You actually reminded me of another huge moment for the
that was a
Marlins.
huge moment.
It was hitting that 498, 497 feet home run.
497, yeah.
And yeah, hopefully he bounces back next year. I don't know. I don't know if he will, but hopefully he does. And yeah, I think I'm going mainly Jeezy on my most disappointing player because I kind of saw Avi doing pretty because of the money that the Marlins shed and the fact that it was an even year. And Avi isn't really good on even years, but hopefully he bounces back next year as well.
And then finally, your thoughts on Trevor.
Trevor Rogers, man, I would say he's my number three in terms of disappointing. And you said it, high ERA all season. Um, gave up way too many home runs. He was too reliant. I forgot what specific pitch. He was way too reliant on one, but he has a killer fastball, man. And I think Mel kind of tweaked him a bit at the end of his final starts. Fortunately, fell to injury, and that was kind of the story of the season: injuries and injuries and injuries. But we started to see a little bit more of 2021 Rogers by the end of his final starts, and he brought a little bit more consistency every time he came out and pitched. Um, with the with Rogers, man, I really hope he also brings it back together. I think out of the three that I named in terms of disappointing players, I think Rogers for sure has the highest chance to come back. And the pitch was, I believe it was the changeup, which was what was killing him the most.
So this is 2022 for our viewers on YouTube, and then we go to 2021. It's basically the same. So,
Right, yeah, pretty much the same. Oh, I only threw one
but he
sinker.
did use the changeup a little bit more to just 2% more.
Right, and I feel like hitters got a bit too ahead of him there. Um,
There's
but
about
honestly,
metrics. So.
show his 2021 real quick, like right up there on
Pitch
the
usage.
go up on the right there on the percentiles.
That's
On his
2020. I don't.
2021.
How do I put 2021?
You see the little underline? There we go. All right. See, like,
Look
notice
at the
notice the
difference.
bat. Notice the huge difference. Whole lot of red. You go to 2020, yeah, you still see some red as well, and then 2022, it's all a complete turnaround. But
You know, And I'll say this, the one player we did not mention at all, Jacob Stallings.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a disappointment. We kind of expected some things from him. We expected better defense, which, to be fair, he did provide for Sandy a lot better defense. But offense, yeah, it's kind of what we expected, to be honest with you. Let's look at 2021.
And,
A little
and,
bit
and
better. A little bit better. Let's go to
right. And something I
2020.
wanted to bring on Stallings is that, you know, I think he's fine. I really don't consider him a disappointing player. I think his only disappointing thing was his defense wasn't as elite as we wanted or expected, but his hitting is just about what I expected. He's got jump on the offense, and that's kind of what happens. The I think the Marlins played a game of gambling, and they had the chance to get Stallings, they had the chance to get Wilson Contreras, and I feel personally that Wilson Contreras was the better option for a team who's struggling with their offense. But they got Jacob Stallings, and he did exactly what he was you know uh advertised to do. He deserves credit. He helped Sandy get to where he was. He was Sandy's Jeff Mathis to what he was with Jose Fernandez. How about that? I give
That's a
credit
great
to
way to put
Stallings.
it. Yeah, I agree. So I want to move over to breakout player. Who's your guy? I think we
My
have the same guy.
breakout player. This is an interesting one. I would have said Braxton Garrett because he kind of pitched in the previous seasons, but I decided not to. I kind of kept him in the Rookie of the Year. I'm going Jesus Luzardo and John Birdie as my
Oh,
as
so you're going with
my
two? Okay.
as my breakout candidates, man. Like John. Let's start with Luzardo first. Man, that guy is amazing to watch. He's really locked on when he's on that mound, and sadly injuries as well killed him for a good chunk of the season. But Luzardo, man, he and you could agree with this one, like he was nasty on
He was
that
really
mound.
good.
And his energy, like, do you remember that one early in the season against the Braves? He was just shutting down hitters nonstop, nonstop. He was just mowing them down. And man, GZ's so good. And another work of art from Mel Stoudemire.
Yeah.
Pay his bag, Marlins. Um, but for Birdie, stolen base leader, and that now makes him. I think he's now
He's first.
along. Yeah, he's along now with Juan Pierre. He's now with D Gordon in terms of
Oh, you're talking all-time Marlins. I thought you were talking about this year
all-time
in the
Marlins
standing.
with the stolen base leader. I think D Gordon had a season where he finished first in stolen bases as well. So did Juan Pierre. Um, Fun guy, fun guy. I'm glad he got more playing time. I made an article about John Birdie
Yeah,
on the
go read
KO
that,
Sports
folks.
Corner, so uh, deserves a lot more love. Birdie is one of my candidates for breakout player.
Yeah, so mine is as well. John Birdie leads the NL, leads the all MLB in stolen bases. The guy was really good. And you look at his 2021 stats: 210 batting average, 311 OBP, 313 slugging, 624 OPS, 4 homers, 19 RBIs, 8 stolen bases. Only 8. He goes from 8 to 41 stolen bases, a higher batting average, higher OBP, higher slugging, just a little bit of a higher OPS, same amount of homers, more RBIs. So it was John Birdie, and then I want to go to comeback player of the year now. Mine is Pablo Lopez, injured half the year in 2021 to winning pitcher of the year, pitcher of the month in April. He was the ERA king in the month of April. He earned his first 10-win season. He pitched 180 innings, almost got to 174 strikeouts. So
Yep. And another
almost got to
thing,
200 strikeouts. So he had as a good of a season as Sandy almost. And I definitely think if Pablo's going to put some expectations on himself for 2023, it'll be let's have a 200 season.
Kevin, he finally pitched a full season.
All
He's
full season. He
capable
made
of
every
doing that.
scheduled start. He made
Yeah,
every
he
scheduled start.
he's shown his capabilities and what he's able to put up on the field, especially when he's fully healthy, and you love to see that. Unfortunately,
And
though,
and he was a Roberto Perez nominee.
oh, that's
Roberto
right.
Clemente over.
You're gonna get flamed on that.
Explain
But
more, you guys.
but um but yeah, you said it. Pablo Lopez, tremendous guy. I think that's another thing we need to mention. Amazing person on and off the field.
Let's see what
Um
happens in his future in Miami.
yeah, that's my thing. I don't know. Hopefully, I've been a huge advocate of keeping the guy, but it's starting to look like a desperation move now for the Marlins moving forward.
Yeah. So who's your player? Who's your breakout or comeback? I'm sorry.
My comeback player of the year, Paulo Lopez. Yeah,
Hey,
it
all
was
right, there we go.
Paulo
We agreed
Lopez.
on one.
Pablito takes it, just like Peter Pratt says it. Pablito. I'll be sure to send it to him. But yeah, Paulo Lopez is my comeback player of the year. And you said it. You just nailed everything. He's amazing, amazing guy. Pitched. He deserved it, man. Like I think when you come to think of it, he just deserved it. He's a guy who works hard. He's a hard worker. He's good with he's good with you guys when you guys went over to ask him questions. I saw your Marlins Jeopardy
He's
questions. He's
amazing.
so humble. He's
I
such a
love
humble,
Paul.
fun guy.
He's one of my
And
favorite players. Yeah.
man, if he does get moved, man, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt.
Yeah, just on the personal side, it's gonna hurt, but when you really look at the logistics of it, it's kind of time.
Right.
Not because he's bad or anything, just odd
Right.
man out
Yeah.
in a rotation that's very young and very, very good with a lot of depth. So we'll see what happens there. And then finally, minor league player of the year. My minor league player of the year is Nasim Nunez, who had 70 stolen bases, improved the bat, very, very, very high walk rate, and the defense is the best in the minor league system for the Marlins. This guy will stick at short. He's going to be making the major leagues as shortstop. But now I had minor league player of the year. I'm going to go pitcher of the year very quickly here, and that is Dax Fulton. It's not Yuri Perez. So just look at what Dax Fulton did, man. And just your reactions. I already know Yuri's going to be your minor league player of the year. You're not a yeah. So that just Dax Fulton, man. The ERA is high in Beloit, but the FIP is low. And then you go to Pensacola and look what he did in the playoffs, man. 13 Ks in the playoffs in the winner go home game. So Dax Fulton's my minor league pitcher of the year.
Wow, that's impressive. That's really impressive. I like that you mentioned Brax and not excuse me, not Brax,
Dax.
Dax. Um, I was going to mention him as an honorable mention. I was gonna say, hey, keep a close eye on Dax Fulton next year. He's gonna be
And you were
crazy.
talking about trading him just a year ago, John, and
Yeah,
he was the Yuri Perez of this year.
yeah. I think that's a good argument to make. And another thing to mention is that the fact that Dax is a lefty. And I think something that we've kind of noticed is that the team is a little bit depleted on lefties. So you got Rogers, you got
Brax.
Braxton, and
Now
then now you
Dax.
got Dax. Oh, and Eater.
Eater's a lefty. Yeah.
Eater's coming back as
Hey, and
well.
that's someone to keep a close eye on to make his debut at some point early 2024 if they want to keep him in minor league baseball for another year, just the Tommy John, see how he comes back, see if he could get to that AAA level. So maybe he does make his 2023 debut. So we'll see.
Something that you've mentioned as well, since for minor league player of the year, since you mentioned a pitcher and a hitter, I'll do that. I'll do the same thing. For my pitcher, I gotta give it to Yuri.
Okay. Are you going to pull McIntosh?
Nah,
Yeah.
Yuri finished 3-3, 3.97 ERA, a whip of 1.14. Kind of struggled a
Yeah,
bit.
the stats really don't speak for what he did this year.
Right.
That's a lot. That's what many have said.
But another thing, Kevin, he's only 19. And it's starting
Making
to
his
be
major league
crazy to
debut
me.
next year, man.
It's starting to get really, really crazy to me that I'm now starting to be older than the new players coming in. It's that transitional period. And for
Dude, I
me,
I interviewed this guy and he's like 6'8" or something, and I'm just like there standing next to the guy, and I'm younger than him by like 2 years. He would
two
be like in his
years.
sophomore year of college or something right now.
Yeah. And man, credit to that guy. He's a absolute beast. I
I can't
expect
wait.
him
I
to
can't
be
wait to see him in the major
crazy.
leagues, man.
And many people were even coming up with the idea that he was going to pitch the last game of the season.
Hey, why
I,
not at this
I
point?
remember that. But man, yeah,
He'll make his debut next year though. He'll definitely put up a statement in spring training, and if he pitches well enough, man, You should
Yeah,
bring him up to the rotation. Maybe give him a
yeah.
start or two with the jumbo shrimp, and from then on, just make him the rotation piece. And because you have to trade pitchers this offseason, John, and we're not going to get too much into this because I want to do a full episode on that, which will probably be like 5 Zoom meetings. But yeah, dude, you're gonna have to trade one or two pitchers. Yuri's untouchable. That's been said many, many times. This guy's in the light of Josh Johnson and Jose Fernandez of how good he could be, man. And now he's in the light of Sandy Alcantara, who's definitely one of the best pitchers to ever wear the Marlins uniform. You could even put him top three in there. And if Sandy does relatively close to what he does, he may be better than Josh Johnson. No offense to one of the best pitchers, maybe the best pitcher in Marlins history right now.
All time,
Josh
baby.
Johnson. So if Sandy does what he did once again, just almost similar, you really have to start putting him in that conversation. But going back to Yuri, yeah, I think this guy makes his major league debut in 2023. He will get an invite to spring training, and that's like 99% sure of that on my end. Just I think he will. So let's see if that happens.
And for my minor league offensive player of the year,
Oh
it's
boy.
got to go to Yiri Cape. He is
Okay, that's who won it for that was the minor league player of the year for the Marlins. So good choice.
absolute crazy man, dude. Cuban, 290 average, 328 OBP, 438 slugging, 766 OPS, played 67 games. Man, he's so aggressive when he plays. He plays it with heart. And another thing, he is only 20 years old, like, and he's really climbing up the ranks really, really quickly. He's currently in, I believe, Jupiter, right? So I think
Jupiter, yeah,
he'll make
he
the
started in
jump.
he started in FCL, and he was one of the hottest players in the FCL, and he got to jump up to Jupiter, and he'll probably he slowed down a little bit. I don't know if you're looking on Fangraphs, but he
Yeah,
slowed down just a little bit when he went to Jupiter, but he'll get it going again, and hopefully he'll start there, and then hopefully Beloit comes up as
my
Adam.
prediction is that Yidi will finish in Double A next
Okay,
year.
that's yours. Okay, I'll think he ends it up in Beloit. That's where I'll go.
Okay.
But I guess we'll end it here almost, but I want to mention a couple other names that are down there. The draftees, Marcus Johnson was pretty good. He was pretty damn good. I'm high on that guy. Torrin Montgomery, another player I'm very high on,
Oh
first
yeah.
base prospect. That guy mashes, dude. He's gonna be really good. So those are the two I wanted to mention there. Jacob Miller made his low A debut there. And I want to talk some AFL. Arizona Fall League. I don't know how much you've been keeping up with it, but Joe Mack has been killing it, man. He's
Oh
like,
really?
yeah, he hit a homer yesterday, and I think he hit one today or had a very nice game today. So Victor Mesa Jr. is another player who's having himself a nice season. The only
That's
player that's
good to
been
hear.
really struggling has been Jose Salas, but I hope to see him get it going very, very soon. So that is the AFL update. John, we're gonna end it here. Very long episode. So once again, if you have any issues with editing, the guy next to me is the one who you will contact for that. But John, thank you for hopping on. We'll be doing this weekly. Um, all Marlins will also be going back up there, and they'll get your videos going. I know you have a guest coming up. You have a couple guests in the works. I know that one
Hmm.
for sure. They'll be talking kind of what we're talking about here, but in a different sense. So
Right.
yeah, and just stay tuned. Football in Florida's coming back. We'll have Sean Miller very, very soon. I think we'll be recording that one on Monday when this drops. So yeah,
Yeah, we
John,
got
thank you for hopping
Dolphins
on.
game tomorrow, playing against the Vikings. Heat coming up soon,
The Heat
and
start that
Panthers
season
took a
Wednesday.
win against the
Wednesday.
Sabres.
So there's
And
a
right behind
lot of
you, got
sports.
Inter Miami as well, going to the
Playoffs on
playoffs.
Monday. Yeah, on
That's right.
Monday.
Let's do
So
this, man. KO Sports Corner.
Chaos Sports Corner. This will be the number one spot to tune into all Miami sports and everything around it.
Oh,
We're even including Tampa Bay Rays.
another thing to mention, I will be also writing an article on the NASCAR race coming up in 2 weeks at Homestead Miami Speedway. I'll be
I'll be
featuring that
there.
as well.
I'll be there. So yeah, that should be a good time. We have a lot coming up. Very different sports, as John mentioned. You'll be doing NASCAR. So yeah, John, thank you for hopping on. We'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace out. Go fish.